So one of the greatest lessons I learned in life, I learned from a pretty casual friend, an acquaintance really. His name was David. And David used to walk around and say, how do we know it's a bad thing? Think about that. How do we know it's a bad thing? And the reason David walked around and said that is when David was in his 40s, he contracted hepatitis C. David had been an intravenous drug user and he had kicked the habit, but unfortunately hepatitis C is a virus that gets in your blood system and it can be there for many years undetected. And so long after David stopped using drugs, he got hepatitis C, and he was understandably pretty bitter about it. And he would say, you know, God, I did all this work to stop using drugs and now I've got hepatitis C and I'm dying from it. He was dying from it because in those days, and it may still be the case, you really couldn't get a liver transplant if you were a former drug addict. You're just not a very good risk. So David had a death sentence and he was getting sicker and sicker and he was dying. And then miraculously, and you'll hear why in a minute, miraculously, he contracted a fatal blood cancer. Think about it. He's dying from hepatitis C and then he gets a blood cancer. So now he's really bitter. He's saying, you know, God, why me, essentially? Why did you bring all this on to me? Well, lo and behold, the NIH was doing a clinical study on an investigative new drug for this blood cancer. And it was a pretty rare disease and they were looking for candidates for the clinical trial. And David raised his hand and said, you know, can I be in this trial? And they looked at him and they said, well, no, because you're dying of hepatitis C and this is a longitudinal study. We need you around for a while. So what they did, because they needed patients for the clinical trial, they arranged for him to get a liver transplant. So he got a liver transplant. It was very successful. The hepatitis C cleared up and went away. And lo and behold, this investigative new drug was a success. And so the fatal blood disease was taken care of as well. So for the rest of his life, he walked around telling himself and telling anybody that would listen, we don't know if it's a bad thing. I think about that a lot. I think about that a lot when real estate deals crash. I think about that a lot when the economy gets bad. I think about that a lot when my children bring to me problems or issues. We don't really know it's a bad thing.